Hey, welcome back to part 6 of our brain health seminar. This is called Pandemic Recovery. And we are so excited about this last session today. I know that you're going to be blessed through this. And if you want to go back and look at any of the past sessions, you can always go to crosspoint.com, crosspointwithane.com/pandemic recovery. And that's the journey that we're on together as we're trying to recover from this pandemic. And today we're in part 6, brain health is your best defense against pandemics, COVID, and mental health issues. Today we have our guides, Dr. Daniel Amen, his wife Tana, as well as Dr. Earl Hensland, and they have learned so much about the brain. They have scanned more brains than anyone else on the planet, and I know that you're going to be encouraged today as we talk about brain health. So let's talk first of all with you, Dr. Amen. Why don't you start us and tell us what are some of the worst things that we can do for our brain?
Well, the number one worst thing you can do for your brain is not care about it, not think about it. It controls everything you do and everything you are. And when it works right, you work right. And when it doesn't, there's trouble. And I love what you said about your best defense against the pandemic is your brain and your immune system. Everybody's waiting for a vaccine or what's the medication or medications that are going to work against this. And it's just sort of the wrong thinking in that your best defense is you. It's making good decisions so you don't put yourself at unnecessary risk. And then optimizing your vitamin D level, your vitamin C level, zinc. It's really taking care of your body and your brain. And that happens by the food you eat, by the thoughts you think, by the people you hang out with, and knowing your deepest sense of meaning and purpose. So the first mistake people make is they don't think about it. They don't care about it, when in fact your brain is going to make good decisions and help you live longer, or it's going to make bad decisions that damage and hurt you. And it's not just about you, it's about other people in your life, because every day you model health or you model illness.
Tana, you are a fitness nutrition expert. You've written several books, the Omni Diet, and so many cookbooks, so many other things in this area. Talk to us about the connection between food and the brain.
So when I wrote the Omni Diet, before I wrote the Omni Diet, the research I did for the Omni Diet, I had no intention of writing a book. That's what happened organically. It was because I learned a long time ago what most of the country is learning right now. Those of us who have been sick and had to figure a way to feel better without being on a laundry list of medications, we had to sort of figure it out before, right? And so for me, I was at one point, after this repetitive recurrence of cancer, after going through depression, after all of these different things, 10 medical surgeries, I finally figured out I don't like the way I feel. And the fact that I'm on 9 medications, most of them to manage the side effects of other medications, was just ridiculous. And so when my doctor told me, well, you should just be grateful for the medications and take them and go see a psychiatrist, I went, okay, there's got to be a better way. So I did a lot of research to figure out what the connection was between food and your health. And I knew there had to be a better way than just, continuing to layer on more and more medications. And it turns out it was a huge connection. When your food is right, I'm not saying that medication is bad. We aren't against medication at all. There are medications I will have to take for the rest of my life, as many of our patients do. I'm just against the indiscriminate use of it without also addressing things like nutrition and fitness, because they are your best defense, as we've been talking about. So what I learned is inflammation is a killer. Literally, it's a killer. So when you eat foods that increase inflammation, we put people on an elimination diet, and we initially, for the first few weeks, we want to take everybody off of sugar is the big one, dairy, soy, gluten, and food dyes. And there's a few other things in there, but those are the big ones, okay? And not everybody responds to all of them the same, but those are the ones that make most people respond negatively. They increase inflammation. When we can get people's inflammation down, they not only feel better, their pain is better, their immune systems are better, and their mind works better. And we talked in one of the other episodes about how food affects mood. Food affects your thinking, your moment-to-moment decisions. If you eat a lousy diet the night before, you eat a ton of sugar, you eat a ton of, bad food, you drink a bunch of alcohol, good luck the next day feeling sharp. You're not going to feel sharp. So, but if you eat really healthy food the night before, get up, have a smoothie, and then exercise, you're going to feel much better. You're going to feel sharper. So decreasing that inflammation is huge. Also fixing your gut, because the gut-brain connection is critical. And we've only been learning this in the last few years. But if your gut's not healthy, your brain isn't healthy. So we need to get people's guts healthy in order for their brains and their mood to be good. So that's where my mission came from. And we can go through, and we can go as deep into this as you want, but that is the surface, scratching the surface of it.
Well, I want to go right to some solution right now. That's usually where I'm at, is talk to us about what you would recommend we should eat for brain health.
Yeah, when people say, well, if you just eliminated 90% of the food in my house, that's what they always say. Whenever I give them the list of things to take out, they're like, but that's everything in my house. So processed food, obviously, if you eliminate the things I just talked about, cheap oils and things like that have to go to, trans fats. And if you eliminate all of those things, you just eliminated 90% of Americans' pantries, right? And they're always like, but there's nothing left to eat, which is why I've written 10 cookbooks. So there's so much to eat. In fact, I've got hundreds of free recipes on my website to support people in this. And I've written all these books because there is so much to eat.
Brain Warriors Way cookbook. This is my favorite of all.
And it's made to be simple.
She and I also wrote a book called The Brain Warriors Way. And you explain it as you can think of a plate. Right. 70% should be plant-based foods, 30% high-quality protein. Even if you're vegan. Mix in a lot of healthy fat. And the more colorful the vegetables, not Skittles, the better that is. So I was in Chloe's second grade class, and I put 20 things on the board. And I said, just separate them. Good for your brain, bad for your brain. They got everything right, second grade, except one, orange juice. Fruit juice has way too much sugar. Whenever you unwrap fruit from its fiber source, fruit sugar from its fiber source, it actually turns toxic in your body. So eat the fruit, but don't drink the fruit. So would you say that's sort of a simple way for people?
That's a really simple way to do it. Yeah. I mean, we could go really deep into each one of those foods and why. But the other thing is we haven't even touched on supplements, which we don't have time for. But we do all kinds of work on that. If people are interested in watching, our live chats or whatever, you'll get all sorts of information on that and free recipes. But we can go as deep into this as you would like. But yes, mostly plants, but not processed plants, like real whole plants. Being vegan, the word vegan, the one gripe I have with it, I don't have a dog in the fight at all, whether people want to do plant-based diet or not. It's that people use that word like it's synonymous with health. Being a vegan is not synonymous with being healthy, just like I used to think being fit was synonymous with being healthy. It's not. So if you're a vegan, you need to know how to be a vegan in a healthy way. Don't eat French fries, right? They're not synonymous. Just because you cut meat out of your diet, you've got to cut processed foods and eat real, like a raw diet or lots of plants. So a little bit of protein and lots of healthy fat, not processed trans fats or cheap oils.
So one good thing I think for you to explain is the glycemic index, which is how quickly foods turn to sugar.
Right. So that's
because what you said, inflammation is a major cause of depression and dementia. And oh, by the way, who dies if they get COVID-19? People who are diabetic and obese because they're inflamed. And so maybe you could explain the whole concept of the glycemic.
The glycemic index is really how fast food turns to sugar once you eat it. So one thing people don't know, rice, if you eat a bowl of rice, you might as well eat a bowl of sugar. Like that's how quickly it turns to sugar. So people are not aware of that. So if you look up the glycemic index, you'll learn really quickly which foods, the more fiber something has, the longer it takes for it to turn to sugar. Glycemic load is sort of an offshoot of the glycemic index, and it explains, well, certain foods even though their glycemic index might be high, if you're eating it with other foods, it may take longer for it to break down. And so that's why even the glycemic load's even a little bit better for explaining how quickly foods turn to sugar in your system.
So if you think of table sugar, so think of a scale of 1 to 100. The table sugar actually is 72. And you really want to eat foods that are less than 60. But bread, pasta, potatoes, and rice are actually higher on the glycemic index than table sugar.
And people will ask why. It's because of the starch. Starch turns to sugar. It's like a supercarb. So
it actually turns to sugar in your mouth.
Yeah.
If you chew a piece of bread long enough, it turns sweet because your saliva has an enzyme called amylase that will break down the starch to sugar in your mouth. That's why people get addicted to bread and pasta. They just love those things.
It actually lights up we talked about that before, lights up the part of your brain that is the same spot in your brain where cocaine and morphine work. So all of that is in the books. We can go really deep into that, but I don't want to dominate the session.
Here's my question, because you've told us about a ton of stuff not to eat.
Right.
What you said is 90% in most of our refrigerators or cupboards. So I know you've got 10 cookbooks on this, but while we've got the Amons here, what are a couple of your go-tos that are like your staples that are like, this is it?
So let me just show you. This doesn't have to be hard. It's not about suffering. Okay. That's why I said, and this book,
you have to be creative.
You have to be creative. So what I did in this book was, the first book I wrote was super clean, super healthy. And I realized really quickly, too complicated and too expensive for most people. So this one I really tried to be, it's for the ADD family that's got 4 kids and they're both working, or they're a single mom. So it's really easy and it's less expensive. And it's really about showing people that this is not hard. This would be a great breakfast. Whoa, it's a breakfast burrito. And so there's breakfast burritos. There's
So let's be really practical. So for breakfast, I often have either a shake with really healthy protein powder.
That's my go-to.
Spinach, nuts, berries. And so I often have a cup of frozen blueberries. So you can get them from Costco, always make them organic. They have these 3-pound bag of frozen blueberries for $8. And almost every morning I have a cup of frozen blueberries and a couple of eggs. And that's super simple. So a shake. And people have habits. You already have habits, right? Whatever your go-to habits are. So you just have to find maybe 10 or 15 meals that you love that love you back. So my eggs and blueberries or a healthy shake loves me back and I love them.
Well, and one thing I like to do is come up with lists for moms. Well, right now people aren't sending their kids to school, but things are really simple. So like if your kid's ADD, you want to be thinking eggs and avocado or like some berries.
And you have an avocado.
So avocado egg basket. So what you can do, because they're busy, right? So you cut an avocado in half, dump an egg in it, stick it in the toaster oven while you go get your kid ready. 10 minutes later, it's ready to go. It tastes amazing. Put a few berries on the side. You're good. Or you can throw some scrambled eggs and some avocado into a coconut wrap. So when I say burrito, we're not using tortillas, we're using coconut wraps. And so those are just some simple things. I have Tanana pancakes. They're grainless pancakes. Or I have keto waffles. There's just so many things. And they're easy. The Tanana pancakes are easier than regular pancakes. So most of these recipes have less than 5 ingredients.
And so for lunch, having a salad and put a piece of protein on it and, go for fish, more sustainable fish, more than red meat, except, I'm like, what's the fight over red meat? If your iron is high, you should probably avoid red meat. Because of my genes, I tend to run with higher iron. And so red meat is loaded with it.
But it's also about the grass-fed. So if it's not grass-fed, then it's going to be much higher in omega-6 fatty acids. It's going to be more inflammation causing. So you want to be thinking grass-fed meats, because grass-fed meat, if it's red meat, actually has significantly less saturated fat. So it's much healthier for you.
And it doesn't have to be expensive. Go to Trader Joe's. They have
In fact, we eat this a lot. Their chicken thighs are hormone-free, antibiotic-free, free range, and they're not expensive because the food companies are beginning to think people are thinking about their health. But if you can just really think of 70% colorful plants, colorful, because the more colors you can get, the more nutrients they have in them. And then high quality protein with healthy oils, nuts, seeds. Those are all things that serve your health rather than high. And I just hate this. We celebrate with things that decrease our life expectancy. And it's like, why is that?
But there's just so many snacks for your kids. There's cookies and cupcakes, and they don't have to feel like they're missing out. I have these little nutty butter cups that are 2 ingredients. They don't need to feel like they're missing out. You just need to be a little bit thoughtful.
That's so good, guys. I love Jesus and I love working out, and I'm learning a lot about nutrition. It's easier for me to work out than it is to eat right, but I've also heard
for most people,
you can't outwork. I can't work out harder than my diet.
Nope.
These are some good things. One of the things that I think helped Shannon and I is when we were talking about organic blueberries or whether it be grass-fed beef, it is a little more expensive, but I'm like, we're going to pay either way. Either we're going to pay it now or we're going to pay it later when it comes to our medical bills and our health. And we would rather spend a little bit more on that investment up front.
And depression and how productive you are.
That's
so
good.
How sharp your brain is.
I want to switch gears. We're talking about brain health today, and I want to go to Dr. Hensland. And Dr. Hensland, I want to talk to you specifically about boundaries and how do boundaries fit in with brain health?
The important thing to realize that in order to have boundaries, you have to have a healthy brain, because a healthy brain helps you set the boundaries. And so, like there's an area in the brain called the left and right basal ganglia. And say a person gets into a stressful interaction with someone, and maybe they're being real angry or potentially verbally abusive, and they find themselves freezing. They just don't know what to say or do. Well, that's because the brain, that anxiety center has gone up, and it causes the perfusion in the front part of the brain to go down. And so literally they don't have the words to say that. So we can't emphasize enough where brain health is the beginning of good boundaries. In the scriptures, what's so beautiful about this is looking at Jesus and his interaction with his mom. There's 5 interactions recorded in scripture between Jesus and his mom: birth, death, and the 3 in the middle are filled with conflict and tension. And what I love about the story, we know that Jesus does not sin. We know he loves his mom, and yet he also, because many times we have to work at setting the boundaries with family members, in order to take care of ourselves, have brain health, or not to put ourselves in stressful situations. The first one is when Jesus is 12 years old, and the family has gone to Jerusalem for the taking of the census. And we also think at that time that he went through like a bar mitzvah, where he was acknowledged as a young man at this point. And so the family is one day down the road when they realize their 12-year-old's not with them. So that means they have to travel back another day, which is 2 days. And then it says they hunted in Jerusalem for 3 days. So now we're talking 5 days. This mom does not know where her 12-year-old. I don't know one parent, one mother or father would not be a little bit anxious and worried about that. And so Mary, the scene is Mary's coming up to Jesus, and it says that she's anxious and worried. And it's so fascinating what Christ says there. He doesn't say, "Mom, I'm sorry, I didn't pin a note on the donkey to let you know that I was staying behind." And he says straightforwardly, "I was at my Father's house doing my Father's business." Now, he doesn't take care of her. Many times we can grow up this feeling that unless we say and do the right thing, a parent might not make it, or if a parent was suicidal, or they might kill themselves, or so on. But he is saying real clearly, I'm not responsible for all these feelings of anxiety within you. I'm responsible to do what my Heavenly Father wants me to do. The second scene is the first miracle, which is at the wedding. And Mary says to her son, they're running out of wine. I don't know about you, but I just hate it in families where they make this indirect communication. You're supposed to read into it and somehow know what the thing to do is and things like that. And that's all she says. They're running out of wine. Now, Jesus is a little upset about this. He says, woman, it's not my time. Not my time to begin to do the miracles. And then she says to his servants, well, do whatever he wants, And so he goes ahead and he makes the wine. The last time is these incidents that's recorded is he's at the beginning of his ministry. He's going around talking about being the Son of God, and he's calling disciples, he's teaching and things like this. And it says that he is so busy, he does not have time to eat. Now, this is a man, early 30s, and his mother hears about this and his brothers, and it says they think he has lost his senses. So the family's perception of him is that his driveway does not go all the way to the street, that there's something crazy about him. And when you think about it, he's calling himself God and he's talking to people, but they're concerned that he does not have time to eat. And so the family then comes to take him home to Nazareth. They think he's nuts. So imagine this scene. He's teaching in the temple. So it'd be like you, Pastor Brian, you're at the pulpit and you're teaching and things like that. Your mom and your brothers show up in the back of the church, send a message up to you while you're preaching saying, it's time to come home, Brian. We're going to take care of you. We know what's best for you. You're acting kind of crazy here. And here it's so fascinating. It's kind of intrusive to do that. It's kind of violating his boundary there in teaching. And so he says, who is my mother and my brother? Those who do my Father's will are my mother, brother, and sister. So he makes a declaration, again, like he did at 12. I have this new purpose, this new direction. And sometimes family doesn't understand these things. And they kind of think you're a little crazy. And so we have to work on setting the boundary, which is what Christ said. And that's why I love that story. He loves his mom. There's no doubt about it. Because at the cross, he says to John, son, behold your mother, mother, behold your son. I mean, he makes sure that she's taken care of as he's dying. So boundaries becomes an important part of, am I taking care of myself? And the scripture also says, love one another as you love yourself. And we need to take care of ourself, our brain, our body first. And like Tana's book is awesome in terms of nutrition. I recommend it to people all the time. And everything that Dr. Amen has talked about on brainmd.com, there's actually a free brain health assessment that people can take where it will tell them their brain type, practical strategies of how to help themselves, and the supplements that can help balance the brain. It's an incredible free service offered by Dr. Amen.
I love that story that you just told about Jesus and his mother, and I've never heard it from that perspective. You had shared this personally with me, and the whole thing about the brain health and how to infect manipulation, because sometimes people are manipulating you. And they want you to do what they want you to do, whether it be laying down guilt. And that can affect you mentally, especially if it's your mother, or especially if it's someone that's close to you, or somebody, your children, or someone that you care about. And I love that story about how Jesus had to walk through some motherly manipulation. But the way that you described that was in a way that he did it with grace. Sometimes he said, okay, Mom, I'm going to let you have your way here, and I'm going to oblige what you want. And then sometimes, no, Mom, I got to be about my Father's business. I've got to do what God called me to do, is what I hear you saying, and is the power of protecting, your brain, those boundaries. That was a fantastic story.
Yeah.
Dr. Amen and Tana, he just mentioned this whole brain health assessment that you can be able to do online. And one of the things that Dr. Enza mentioned was supplementation. And Shannon and I, we're on Amen supplements, and our children are as well. Talk to us about some supplements and how supplements affect our brain, and maybe some ones that you would recommend that you think are maybe important for all.
So nourishing your brain is absolutely critical. And a lot of doctors go, well, if you have a balanced diet, you won't need supplementation. And the fact is, very few people actually have a balanced diet and then being free of stress. During the pandemic, our stress hormones have been way up. So they're stealing a lot of the nutrients we need in order to be healthy.
And environmental toxins as well.
Environmental toxins, the toxic products you put on your body. I mean, we could go on and on, but I think most people need a multiple vitamin. Why 93% of people do not have 5 servings of fruits and vegetables a day. Everyone needs omega-3 fatty acid supplement. We did a study, 98% of the population has suboptimal levels of omega-3 fatty acids. They're absolutely essential to brain health. About 80% of the population has low to seriously low levels of vitamin D. So often supplementing with that. You talked about the importance of gut health. Probiotics can be really helpful. And then a long time ago, I realized, well, everybody's not the same.
Did we talk about fish oil? Did you say?
I did.
Okay.
And so
Those
multiple
are my 5
vitamin, fish oil, vitamin D, probiotics. And then it really depends on your brain type. We have people who have balanced brains. They're managing this reasonably well. People who are impulsive. Think of the party goers on Miami Beach at the beginning of the pandemic. They're really the don't worry, be happy people. They actually die early from accidents and preventable illnesses. The compulsive people, or once they get a bad thought in their head, they just can't stop thinking about it. The sad people, or the anxious people. And then based on all of that, I have 16 brain types that we created. If you go to brainhealthassessment.com, it'll tell you which of the 16 types you have, and then what supplements may be helpful. During this time, a lot of people have had trouble with sleep. We make something called Put Me to Sleep. It's so effective. It's got magnesium and GABA, 5-HTP that helps boost serotonin, and theanine from green tea that helps you relax, but actually sharpens your mind. And then one of my favorite supplements, Happy Saffron, that's got saffron, zinc, and curcumin, all independently found to support your mood. But saffron also has been found to support your memory and healthy sexual function, where most antidepressants diminish your sexual function. Saffron has actually been found to help it.
I like that. And I love that you went through all the 5 basics. So the 5 that we talked about initially those are my 5 go-tos. And then I like that you talked about individualizing it based on your brain. One thing we do at Amen Clinics that I think is critical, rather than just recommending random supplements for everybody, we test you, right? So we want your blood test. We want your brain test, and we want your blood test, because it's different for everybody. So for example, if you are low in ferritin or you are anemic, taking a take a supplement every day can literally be like the Lazarus effect. I mean, I'm one of those people, and it's just like you just feel significantly better, and you think better, and you're sharper. And likewise for females, especially, like over 80% of the population is low in magnesium, actually more than that, are very low in magnesium. So taking magnesium helps settle anxiety. And for women with PMS, it's critical. So you touched on that. But it's really important to get your individual blood test. I mean, people are shocked. I take like 20 supplements a day, but I was on 9 medications that have a lot of side effects. So I would rather take the supplements and feel the best I've ever felt. I'm 51 and I feel fantastic. But that was a lot of trial and error and blood tests and, and so, yeah, not everyone's going to have to do that. My health was, special, but getting your blood drawn, finding out what you're low in, especially if you're a vegan, you want to supplement with those things that you need to boost your health. It's just going to save you not only from feeling miserable, but the potential side effects of layering medications later.
And in my book, The End of Mental Illness, actually many of my books, I have, well, what blood test should you get? Because we always say you can't change what you don't measure.
Right.
And so, well, how much vitamin D should you take? Well, what's your vitamin D level? When I first tested mine, so normal's 30 to 100. And vitamin D is just critical for mood, for memory, for immune system function. And when vitamin D, so normal's 30 to 100, people who are over 40 have half the risk of cancer of those who are under 20. And when I first tested mine, it was 17. And I live, like the rest of us in Southern California, where the sun's out 300 days a year. But I wasn't outside because I was working during the day. And so initially I took 10,000 units a day to get my level up to 80. And I don't recommend you take 10,000 units. I recommend you get your level tested and then work with your doctor to figure out how much you should take.
Yeah, the last thing I want to add to that is one of the reasons we are such advocates for you getting a blood tested, knowing where you're at, understanding how being low in omega-3 fat, not just omega-3, but how your fatty acid levels affect you and also vitamin D and all these different nutrients, how they affect you. If you're anemic, all this stuff has a significant effect on not just your mood, your memory, and all those things, but even things like eating disorders. So compulsive behaviors, all of these different things, it's critical to understand. And very few places actually test for nutrients. So it's just, they're starting to, there's more now, but it's just a critical thing.
And many people who are obese, overweight, or obese are often severely
malnourished,
nutrient deficient. So you wouldn't think that, but the food they end up eating and then craving because that has hijacked their brain is they're not nourished at all. In fact, for many, just as you said, they're malnourished.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe add to that, I have a test we offer at our office called Cell Wellbeing, where we take a couple hair follicles and that gets, the DNA gets split off from that. We get a report back that actually tells specific nutrients you're deficient in and then specific nutritional recommendations to balance that out. So along with the blood testing and the tests on the Amen Clinic, that's the test we have. The other thing I just wanted to add in about saffron, most likely Dr. Luke, who wrote the Gospel of Saint of Luke, was trained under Hippocrates. Hippocrates said, medicine is your food, food is your medicine. And so when Dr. Amen talks about something like saffron, or Tana talks about curcumin and so on, those are probably things that Dr. Luke was recommending to the disciples at that time. Hippocrates is about 300 years before Christ, and so those are the kinds of things. And saffron actually comes from the island of Crete, was when it was first identified. So it kind of fits with actually what Dr. Luke would have done.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about brain health today. And Dr. Amen, I love this phrase that you say, brain health is your best defense against pandemics, COVID, and mental health issues. And we've talked about diet today. We've talked about supplements. We've talked about boundaries and those pieces. And, there's been a lot of memes on social media that talk about the quarantine 15 or the COVID-19, the extra pounds that we've packed on. And I love these tips that you've given us today. And I think our ultimate goal is, to experience joy in our life. And how do we reach this ultimate fulfillment in our life? Jesus said, I've come that you might have life, and that you might have life more abundantly. Dr. Henslin, you've written a great book. I love your book. This is Your Brain on Joy. as we're talking about brain health and the goal of joy, talk to us a little bit more about what God taught you as you were writing this book.
Well, one of the things about, you have to realize, I grew up on a dairy farm in southeastern Minnesota, strong German background. So joy and happiness, there must be something sinful about that. It's if there's something wrong. If you laugh too much or something like that, or, humor and German background is kind of like an oxymoron. And so one of the things that grew out of that book was the freedom to actually laugh, have fun. It's so interesting. People will say to me, well, Dr. Hanson, you have a sense of humor. And that's always a surprise to me, because that's not how I view myself. But that's something within our family we've really been growing in. Because like Dr. Amen and Tana talk about, it's like so many times I write down a gratitude list and train the cingulate, that gear shifter in the brain, to look for good things, look for reasons to laugh, look for reasons to be happy, and so on. Because like with my dad's death, yes, we'll feel the grief 5 years later. Father's Day, it hit me and my mom, all of our siblings. But yeah, we also talk about the funny things that happen as well. The things that he did that were funny and humorous and sense of humor. Like, so this real quick, my mom would get upset at the squirrels that would get into her bird feeder, and would shoot at them and try and scare them away. And one time, one of my daughters, Amy, was up there and helped Grandpa and Grandma with shopping and putting the groceries away. And then her grandpa, my dad, says to her, come over here, as her grandmother's going in the house, pulls a great big bag of peanuts out of the trunk of the car and goes and puts them right in the tree where that squirrel is. And Amy looks at him and says, well, isn't that where that squirrel is that Grandma keeps wanting to shoot and send away? And she says, yeah, but I feel kind of sorry for him. so during time you miss them and you have the grief and the sadness, but it's also a time to laugh and have joy. Ecclesiastes says sadness, laughter, grief, dancing. There's that balance in there that you find as you move through this, the painful stuff, to feel the life and the joy, which is incredibly wonderful for your brain.
I want to ask one final question. Dr. Amen, you started this whole session today about the number one thing we can do is to care about our brains. As parents, those of us that have children that are elementary age or even younger, and those of us that have teenagers as well, as a parent, how do we care for our children's brains? What would you recommend for us?
Well, the most important thing you can do is care for your own, because you're modeling health or you're modeling illness. And the second thing is you control the money. And so I always tell people, make one decision, not 30. If you make one decision not to buy the ice cream, you don't have to make 30 decisions not to eat it, because it'll start talking to you from the freezer. And so many parents go, oh, but he wants Lucky Charms or whatever sugar cereal is in. And it's like, I want all sorts of things that are bad for me. So let's make one decision not to have them in the house, and that will make just a huge difference.
Yeah, so that's a really interesting topic, if I could add to that. So when my daughter was young, I thought this was such an easy thing. I didn't understand why parents were having a hard time with this. It's like it takes 30 days as a nurse. I understand that it takes 30 days for kids to starve to death. So they're going to eat what you give them or they're not. And since I'm the one that did the shopping, there was no junk food in the house. I put all the healthy snacks on the bottom shelves. My daughter could have whatever she wanted. I didn't restrict food because they were all healthy. I was the weird mom, packed weird food in her lunch box. The teachers at school, when I would volunteer, would all hide their food from me. So I was that weird mom. But I didn't understand. I think I didn't have enough empathy for people who had teenagers when they were starting this process, because it's different. Teenagers push back. And I started to realize, okay, I don't know if it's a bad thing when teenagers push back on food. I mean, I'd much rather them open that conversation with food than drugs, I think, because we want to be able to have these open conversations. But it's not our values, right? So at first I had a hard time, and I'm trying to find my balance with it. And then I finally figured out, okay, fine. I can't control, because when they leave the house, you can't control what they do. And you want them to be able to have their own voice in their head and not yours, because that's not going to work when they're in college or whatever. So for me, it was, you know my values. You know why I do this. It's because I love you and I want you to be healthy. If you feel the need to eat these things that you know we don't like because they're not good for you, you're going to have to buy it yourself. So that's sort of where I came from as a teenager who could drive. It's like, if you're going to eat these things, I'm not going to support you in doing it. It's going to come out of your money. And it was amazing how many less things they wanted. So it's amazing how many, that doesn't mean they never do, but it's interesting to see how much less they chose bad food when they had to pay for it. So it's just one of the techniques I used. But I think it starts with education, like really, rather than just laying down the law, it's about opening conversations. Why are we doing this? When my daughter went through significant depression during the quarantine, we're like, you've gotten away. She used to be so rigid about eating healthy, a little too rigid almost, and then she got away from it. It was almost like this rebellious thing. And I think that's normal. But when she got depressed, we sat down, she started crying. She's like, I really need your help. I didn't want to ask, but I need your help. And so we were able to have that open conversation. And we're like, honey, we don't ask you to eat healthy because we want to ruin your fun. We don't do these things because we don't love you or we just want to be, sticks in the mud. It's because we see this coming. It's because we know how this is going to affect you. She's super anxious and she shuts down. And so she went on we did a cleanse together and we started eating really healthy. And all of a sudden we taught her how to, do yoga and meditate and pray. Well, she already prays, but how to really focus her mind. And within 1 week, she turned around.
Wow.
That's powerful. Hey, I want to say thank you guys so much just for this seminar and this session. Dr. Hensland, Dr. Amen, Tana, you guys are gifts to us. I, from the bottom of my heart, want to say thank you for learning and for returning. There's no doubt in my mind that God has given you guys insight that helps us get further, faster. And so from the bottom of my heart, on behalf of Crosspoint Church and everyone that is watching this, thank you guys so much just for this seminar. At Crosspoint Church, we want you guys to know that, man, we love you guys. And we're so thankful for you. And the fact that you're watching this right now tells me a lot about you as well, too, that you have a desire to be healthy. You have a desire for not only yourself to be healthy, but those around you to be healthy as well. And, Dr. Amen, Dr. Hensland, Tana, they talk about biology. They talk about emotional health, social, relational health, as well as spiritual health. And I want you to know that Crosspoint Church is here. If you're looking for a church home, if you're looking for friends, I always like to say your friends are like elevator buttons. They'll either take you up or they'll take you down. And if you're going to have good support in your life, you need to have a group of people that are around you that are going to encourage you, support you, lift you up. And that's what I believe that the body of Christ is. That's what I believe that the church is for. It's to encourage one another and help each other during their times of difficulty, stress. And maybe you're going through something right now and you need support, but some of you have been through a lot. And as you've gone through your journey, we need you. There's other people that need you to be able to talk about your experiences in your journey. So if you're looking for a church home, we would love to invite you. Crosspoint Church, it's crosspoint with an E.com. And we hope that we are here to serve you. And if there's anything we can do, know that we're here for you. God bless you guys. Thank you for joining this seminar.